Well, good evening, HHP Collective. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for joining us or not joining us because I'm the only one here. But I'm sure somebody's going to be listening on. Oh, hi, Abby. Abby, you are just so reliable. Thank you for joining. Um, I want to talk. The title of this conversation is 21st Century Skincare, and that's because I believe skincare is stuck in this old, antiquated model that doesn't work, and this is what accounts for the near endemic dissatisfaction that not only consumers have about their skin, but also professionals have about skincare. People just don't know what to do. The old ideas are just old ideas. They don't work. And one of the classic examples of this is what is arguably the most common skin health challenge that both consumers and skin health professionals have to deal with, and that is acne. Today, Ella and I did a little podcast, and we're going to do these every day or nearly every day, hopefully, um, on various topics. We did one today on comedogenicy, the myth of comedogenicy. I actually have a blog post that I wrote on the myth of comedogenicy. If you're interested in reading that or getting that, send me an email, fuchs.ben@gmail.com, fuchs.ben@gmail.com, and along those same lines. If you're interested in being on my newsletter list, and I send out a newsletter several times a week at least, sometimes more, send me an email and just request to be on the list, fuchs.ben@gmail.com, last name dot first name, fuchs .ben@gmail.com. So Ellen and I did a conversation on comedogenicity this morning, and along the same lines, I thought we'd talk about acne today. And there's so much you can really talk about with acne. First of all, there's two major types of acne. I used to say 7 types of acne. I actually have a presentation I titled the 7 different types of acne. But to make it simple, to simplify the subject, now I talk about 2 types of acne. Faux acne, which Ella came up with the term, she calls it reacne, which is very interesting. And then androgenic acne. Androgens are male hormones. Women have male hormones too, so women can have androgenic acne, but men, or boys, I should say, deal with it much more than women. Sometimes women will deal with androgenic acne when they go through menopause because their female hormones drop and their androgens are relatively higher. But for the most part, androgenic acne affects teenagers. Faux acne, which we will talk about maybe next week or on a coming 21st Century Skincare episode, is an acne that's related to the immune system. Androgenic acne, as the name implies, is related to androgens, male hormones. And there's a couple of wrinkles in there that make it difficult to understand, but really, once you understand it, it simplifies the treatment protocol. And I'll give you a clue, and then we'll get into this. When I was in pharmacy school, we used to call acne skin diabetes. And in fact, the standard remedy, prescription remedy for treating acne was anti-diabetic medicine, one in particular called tolbutamide. And that's because it has been recognized for really decades that acne, which has been around since the days of ancient Greece and the days of ancient Egypt, is linked to insulin and insulin resistance. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole biochemistry of insulin resistance, except to say it's a big problem. And pretty much all health challenges have some degree, chronic health challenges, have some degree of insulin resistance where the body stops listening to insulin. So insulin has to be pumped out of the pancreas, out of the beta cells in the pancreas at copious amounts. Insulin is a very, very problematic hormone. It's an important hormone, arguably the most important hormone in the body, but it's problematic in the sense that it makes things happen. It's a growth substance. It encourages cell division. In terms of the skin, it encourages the division of keratinocytes, and it encourages the division of not just keratinocytes, but also sebocytes. That is sebum cells. So between oil from sebum cells, and between keratin from keratinocytes and dead cells, you get your clog, which starts off the comedonal process or the comedogenic process. So real quickly, and if you were on for my video with Ella, forgive me for repeating myself, because we talked about this morning. Your skin, on the top of your skin, you have pores. I think of pores as rabbit holes or rabbit hole openings. And then the pores lead down to a follicle, which I think of a rabbit hole. At the bottom of the follicle, you have a gland called the sebaceous gland, which is your sebum gland, which is made out of sebocytes. Interestingly, sebocytes are derivatives of keratinocytes, skin cells. So you got your oil gland in the bottom, you got your rabbit hole, and the rabbit hole, like every other part of the body, is lined with cells. This is where it becomes interesting. Those cells, under certain circumstances, will hyperproliferate. They'll divide rapidly. The most important circumstances for this hyperproliferation are nutritional deficiencies, particularly in vitamin A. This is why vitamin A is so important for treating acne. Under conditions of vitamin A deficiency, cells go wild. They divide rapidly. Secondly, insulin. Insulin makes cells divide rapidly. In fact, I have a paper here that I'm going to try to show you on my screen real quickly. Bump, bump, bump. Let's see here. Forgive me if it doesn't come up. There we go. The relationship between acne vulgaris and insulin resistance, and here's the most important. I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but the results found that 81% and 67% of acne patients have insulin resistance. And that this is just a paper from done on a study on a certain amount of people, but you can generally assume that if you have acne, you've got insulin resistance, and that should come as no surprise given the kind of foods that we eat, especially the kind of foods kids eat. I remember one day I had my computer was messed up, and I had a kid come in to fix my computer. People say I'm smart. I'm not that smart. I don't know how to fix my computer. I don't know anything about my computer. But anyway, I got this kid, and he came in, and his face was completely broken out. He was a teenage boy, probably 15. He's probably 18 or so. And his skin was completely broken out. And I remember watching him bring in 2 boxes of donuts, of a dozen donuts each, 2 dozen donuts. And I watched him eat those 2 dozen donuts while he was fixing my computer. And I'll never forget trying to talk to him about his donuts and his acne. Now, I'm not blaming donuts. I'm not blaming all acne on donuts, but I am blaming acne, at least partially, on insulin resistance. And this is going to be important when it comes to how you address acne. So back to our story. You got a comedone. You got a follicle, sebaceous gland in the middle. Keratinocytes line the comedone under conditions of vitamin or nutrient deficiency, particularly in vitamin A, as I said. 2, high levels of insulin, such as that occur in insulin resistance, which is also known as metabolic syndrome. And then C, to a certain extent, something called hypoxia, low levels of oxygen in the blood, which have to do with circulation. I'm not going to get into that one too much, but that also has a hyperproliferative effect. Cancer is the ultimate hyperproliferative health challenge, and it's associated with nutrient deficiency, particularly vitamin A, which is used as chemotherapy in some kind of cancers, certain kinds of cancers, insulin resistance, and also hypoxia. So in a way, the rapid cell division that's associated with comitogenesis is similar to cancer, cells dividing out of control. I don't want to say it's cancer, but it has some similarities in the sense that cells have lost their ability to, or have their growth has been destabilized. So acne is a condition of A, hyperproliferation of keratinocytes inside a follicle. B, hyperproliferation or hypersecretion of sebum from the sebaceous gland. Oh yeah, insulin resistance or elevated insulin will also cause sebum levels to sebum secretion, stimulate sebum secretion. You can sometimes see this as shiny or oily skin. That's also a sign of insulin resistance, even if there's no acne. And then thirdly, you get your bacteria. Bacteria that live on the skin. Remember, you have a microbiome on your skin, and P. acnes, the bacteria that's associated with acne, lives on the skin under normal circumstances. Those bacteria can become trapped inside the follicle. When they're trapped inside the follicle, as the skin cells are dividing, they essentially are in the dark with lots of fat and lots of protein, and they just go crazy. They eat the fat, the sebum, sebaceous secretions, the fatty acids that compose sebum, and they eat the protein, the keratin, the proteinaceous secretions from the keratinocytes. And they're in the dark, which they love. So basically, you have these bacteria that are in the dark. There's no oxygen because it's all clogged up. They have lots of oil and they have lots of protein. They have an all-you-can-eat buffet, and they go to town, and that's where you get your full-blown zit. Why am I telling you this? Because there's another type of acne that has nothing to do with any of these, and that's faux acne. That's reactive acne. That's immune acne, and that will appear not on the T-zone, where you have your sebaceous glands. It'll appear in the cheeks. We'll talk about that. Maybe next week we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in the future. The typical androgenic acne should be regarded as an insulin issue and a nutrient issue. Inflammation will also play a role, and of course, inflammation that comes in from the digestive system, from the intestine, is always going to be involved in chronic disease, but leave that aside for now. Your major strategies for dealing with acne, androgenic T-zone, teenage boy acne, however you want to call it. A. Number one, vitamin A. It's the superstar for treating acne. Even dermatologists know this. That's why you have retin A. What is retin A? It's vitamin A. Retinol or retinoic acid, active vitamin A. And then number two, stabilize insulin. There's a lot of ways you can do that, but the most important way is to reduce your intake of fast-burning carbohydrates that we all love, sugars. And keep in mind, cereal and bread and pasta and potatoes and rice. These are all broken down into sugar, and they can throw off your blood sugar and elevate your insulin. There's something called the glycemic index, which measures how rapidly sugars are broken down at the level of the digestive system, how fast they get into the bloodstream. So you want low glycemic index sugars. The fast-burning sugars or the high glycemic index sugars, those are the most problematic when it comes to insulin. There's also nutrients that you can use that help the body process sugar and potentize insulin. Chromium, vanadium, selenium, niacin. These are all great nutrients that you can use for helping with your blood sugar and also helping with your acne and rapid cell division and hypersecretion of sebum. MSM sulfur can help. The B complex, of course, the B complex, thiamine, and pantothenic acid can be especially helpful. Pantothenic acid is really helpful for oily skin. Pantothenic acid is a very mysterious B vitamin, vitamin B5, that's important for the adrenal glands and for cortisol. Women who are going through menopause would be wise to supplement with generous doses of vitamin B5. And all of these nutrients, by the way, are in my blemish repair complex. And then vitamin A taken orally. Interestingly, Accutane is poison vitamin A, which is kind of ironic because vitamin A deficiency can cause acne. And Accutane is actually a poisoned version of vitamin A. Accutane poisons the vitamin A system. That's why they tell you not to take vitamin A, real vitamin A, when you're taking Accutane, because your body's not stupid. Your cells aren't stupid. They're not going to take the Accutane. They're going to take the vitamin A. So the dermatologist will say, you better not have any vitamin A in the system because we want your cells to be taken in the Accutane, the isotretinoin. Iso meaning similar to, not exactly the same as. So Accutane is a poison version or a distorted version of vitamin A. Real vitamin A, on the other hand, can really stabilize skin cell growth if you're dealing with hyperproliferation and comedogenicis. Then there's topical vitamin A. Now, retin A, as we mentioned, is the go-to topical product, topical remedy from a prescription or a pharmacological or a medical standpoint, but retinol works just as well. And you don't have to go to the dermatologist, and you don't have to wait in line at the pharmacy. You don't have to deal with your insurance company. And if you use our retinol, my Resurfix, for example, 1% or 5% serum, you can get vitamin C with it. And vitamin C, while it's not directly anti-acne, it can help by acting as an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. And as I've said many times, don't believe that silliness about not mixing not mixing retinol with vitamin C. They go together perfectly as long as the vitamin C is fat-soluble vitamin C. That's the only kind I like to work with. Water-soluble vitamin C, i.e. ascorbic acid, it breaks down, it's irritating to the skin, it doesn't penetrate very effectively, and it will interact with retinol, but THDA or fat-soluble vitamin C doesn't. And it works perfectly well with retinoic acid. Other vitamins can help too. Vitamin D, topical vitamin D works hand in hand with topical vitamin A for wound healing and for healthy skin in general. And you've probably heard of something called vitamin A and D ointment for helping treat diaper rash. So vitamin D can also help. And along those same lines, getting out in the sun can also help. And don't be a heliophobe. You need to be out in the sun a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean don't burn, and maybe 15 to 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week or 4 times a week, but don't burn. That's definitely something you don't want to do. Of course, everybody knows these days that you get vitamin D by an interaction between the skin and the sun, so it'll help upregulate your vitamin D. And also, interestingly, The sun can help accelerate wound healing. Now, you don't want to burn. That's the one thing that you don't want to do is burn. So between keeping your blood sugar stable and lowering your insulin, using reducing your intake of fast-burning carbohydrates, high glycemic index carbohydrates. Fruit juices are terrible for that. Very high glycemic index. Also, smoothies, fruit smoothies, they're supposedly good for you. Big problem when it comes to insulin and when it comes to blood sugar. Staying away from those kinds of foods and beverages, and then using nutrients to help the body process sugars, potentize insulin, like, as I said, MSM and chromium. MSM is a form of sulfur. The B complex, thiamine, chromium, vanadium, selenium, alpha lipoic acid. I forgot to mention that. There's a whole bunch of nutrients that you can use, micronutrients that can help you with your blood sugar. And then keep those keratinocytes dividing at a stable pace by using vitamin A internally, maybe 10 to 20,000 international units a day. And I know that's a high dose, but I'm going high dose. You know, with vitamin A, by the way, you don't have to take it every day. Once you get going with it, you've been taking it every day for a couple of weeks or a month or so, you can skip days here and there because it is stored. And then topically, either retinoic acid if you want to use retinoic acid, if you want to deal with the whole medical thing, or retinol, which is just as good, although not quite as potent as retinoic acid. And if you use my retinol, you get fat-soluble vitamin C with it. Acne does not have to be a scourge. Acne is something that can reverse itself very, very, very quickly. And then the last thing I want to say about topically addressing acne is exfoliation can be very helpful with exfoliation with alpha hydroxy acids, or even better if you can get salicylic acid. But they both work pretty much very similar. Salicylic acid is fat soluble, so it tends to go into acne bacteria and it can cut through sebum effectively. But I get great results using alpha hydroxy acids as well. So salicylic acid, if you want to go that way, or alpha hydroxy acids to exfoliate. Retinol on a regular basis topically. You'll get vitamin A benefits. I talked about retinol on an Instagram post yesterday. I absolutely love retinol. Don't believe any of this fear mongering about retinol, which seems to be a meme, if you will. It's a mind virus, or a virus that's been inserted into the culture. You got people terrified of retinol. I go with real retinol, not the fake stuff. There is some faux retinol products, retinoids, bakuchiol, for example. I'm using the real retinol, the real deal. Okay, so that is it for 21st Century Skincare version 6th edition, June 21st. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Vincent. Once again, if you're interested in getting on my email list, send a request to Fuchs, Fuchs, .ben@gmail.com, fuchs.ben@gmail.com. As always, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Abby and Vincent, for joining. Thank you, Ella, for this incredible forum. And then if you like what we're doing here, tune in to Ella, my show with Ella, or not show, but our videos that we will be doing. We're calling them Under the Skin with Ella and Ben, and next one will be tomorrow. Okay, I am going to post this on the HHP Collective Roundtable, and I'm also going to try and get it onto my YouTube page as well. Thank you, everybody. Happy Sunday, happy Father's Day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye for now.